So is it that men are actually afraid of commitment? Or is it because men simply refuse to commit? Before anyone calls me out, yes, there is a difference. A huge difference. How many young women are there out chasing Tad, Chad, and Tyrone? Hell, how many older women are still out there trying to do the same thing and failing badly at it? Do women really think that these men are going to commit to them? Hello, everyone. Based on the comments and downvotes left on my last video in this series, I triggered a few people. With any luck, I can trigger a few more in this video. Let's see if we can do that, shall we? Anyhow, this is the final part of Dr. K's conversation with Steve Bartlett on A Diary of a CEO. Let's see what his closing thoughts are on dating, men, and relationships.
I think we sort of accept that, right? That's correct. Now, this is where the fundamental biological difference comes in. Because a woman doesn't need a man to reproduce. I can go to a sperm bank. And once again, you can argue that you can get laid if you want to, but that hasn't been my experience. I think women struggle with loneliness and finding sexual partners and stuff quite a bit as well. There's some really bad perception on the internet.
Dr. K talked about this earlier, but since he brought it up again, I'll bring it up again. Where do you think the sperm in a sperm bank comes from? Technologically, artificial sperm does not exist yet, thankfully. It comes from one location: men. Now, what he probably meant is that a woman doesn't need to have a man in her life to have a child and to get pregnant. That technically is true. Of course, what happens to the children of a woman who is a single mother and raises them as a single mother? Without a father, these boys grow up confused and feminized. The girls grow up empowered and also thinking they don't need a man. In both cases, these children grow up completely confused and screwed up about how to have a romantic relationship, at least in the real world. And you have people like Dr. K who are passively supporting it. Everything he says is about a man serving a woman and catering to her desires. If those demands aren't met, she just runs off to the sperm bank and has a kid. This is the perfect way to keep this negative cycle going over and over.
What I found works really well is that usually the problem that these men are failing to adapt to can be fixed. But the problem is that the solutions that work for the people who are successful will not work for the people who are unsuccessful. These are apples and oranges, right? So and this is the big mistake, is that when I say, okay, I am happily married with 2 kids, but the thing that I did won't work for these people. That's been my clinical experience. My advice does not work for them. Your advice won't work for them. What we need is a different system that addresses their fundamental problems.
It only took Dr. K 20 minutes to finally admit that he's been blowing smoke up our backside this entire time. He says he's not a sociologist and that he doesn't have the answers on how to fix issues with men, dating, and procreation at a societal level. So, if he doesn't have those answers, then why has he spent the last 20 minutes acting like he's some sort of expert on this particular topic? Could it be that there really isn't this overwhelming issue of angry men wanting to procreate with any and every woman? Or could it be that this issue and its solutions involve the behavior of women? Could it be that any solution requires holding both men and women accountable for their behavior? But that would actually require Dr. K to hold women accountable for something, anything. Based on what I know of him, that isn't likely. It is much easier, in fact, much, much easier to just go with the flow and blame men 100% for everything, including those things that are completely caused by women.
What I found works really well is that usually the problem that these men are failing to adapt to can be fixed. But the problem is that the solutions that work for the people who are successful will not work for the people who are unsuccessful. These are apples and oranges, right? So like, and this is the big mistake, is that when I say, okay, I am happily married with 2 kids, but the thing that I did won't work for these people. That's been my clinical experience. My advice does not work for them. Your advice won't work for them. What we need is a different system that addresses their fundamental problems.
I see. So these men are so screwed up that standard dating advice won't work for them? If that's true, then why has Dr. K spent this entire segment giving standard advice to these men? Just talk to girls. Stop being antisocial. Stop watching porn and jerking off. If Dr. K has these magic bullets that will supposedly fix these men's issues, wouldn't it make sense for him to bring those up earlier in the video instead of burying the lead 20 minutes in? That's because I don't buy what he's offering for sale. Sure, his standard advice is correct. Men should avoid porn and they should have some social skills. That isn't the issue, however. Instead of these grandiose different systems, why not just acknowledge a very simple point? That much of his advice is wrong for the vast majority of men. The problem again emerges that he can't give good dating advice to men without acknowledging something about women's behavior. Here's an example. A young man asks me what he should do if he approaches a woman, attempts to ask her out, and she rejects him. I'll tell him that he should move on and put her completely out of his mind. But Tony, what if she really is interested in him and is just plain hard to get? This is where people like Dr. K don't want to go. Too many women play games with dating. They send mixed messages that men don't understand. They expect men to jump through endless hoops. Women expect men to read their minds when those women barely understand what it is that they want. Different systems is just wordplay to avoid holding women accountable for their part in today's, unfortunately, terrible, terrible dating environment.
Right? Because I had what it takes internally. I was loved as a child. Like this is how deep it runs. So I knew how to give love and receive love. A third of the men that I meet do not know how to give love and do not know how to receive love. Has nothing to do with their Tinder profiles. That's why they're fucked. And when people can say, go to the gym, make more money, but if you do not know how to fundamentally give or receive love, then like that's a huge problem.
Is that where you start when you're trying to solve this on an individual basis?
Yeah. So, I mean, I start giving and receiving love is not where I start because that's like so foreign to them that they don't know how to do that.
Okay.
Right. So I think there are a couple of things. The first place that I start with most men is in understanding their emotions. So we have all kinds of patterns that we engage in that are driven by different parts of us that we have no insight into.
So, Dr. K, how does giving love and receiving love have anything to do with the average man's experience on a dating app? How does giving love and receiving love have anything to do with the man who is repeatedly rejected by a woman before he even opens his mouth to attempt to say something? Could issues of giving love and receiving love impact a man when he's in a relationship with the woman? Okay, that is completely reasonable. A significant portion of men, particularly young men, never even get to that point. A significant portion of men can't even get any woman to acknowledge his existence. He's talking about an issue that occurs 300 yards down a racetrack when you have men that can't even get out of the starting blocks. Where is the advice for those men that allows them to get to the point where they can even worry about giving love and receiving love, to the point where those things can even potentially be a concern? That is a huge part of why his advice doesn't work for these men. It doesn't even apply to their situation. But let me play devil's advocate here. Let me assume for just a second that Dr. K is correct and that men don't know how to give love or receive love. Do women know how to give love and receive love? Do women understand how to show affection to men? Do women know how to show appreciation to any man whatsoever? I'd argue that a large portion have no idea. Can they make a tasty home cooked meal for their husband after a long day at work? This is a very simple act of love that so many men would be absolutely over the moon to have a woman do for them, even a woman that they weren't romantically interested in. What about rubbing his shoulders? What about just giving him some peace and quiet so he can decompress from a long day? Love is a two-way street. Where are all the celebrities and media influencers also encouraging women to appropriately show love to their boyfriends or husbands? If they do exist out there, it sure as heck isn't common because I struggle to find them.
And usually this is like where the money is. So I had a great conversation yesterday with a buddy of mine, and he gave me this fantastic example which I've seen so many times. So there's a lot of women will talk about men who are afraid of commitment.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, like I'm dating this person, he's great, but he's afraid of commitment. He's afraid of commitment. And then it kind of becomes like, oh, like the dude is like, he like needs to step up and needs to like be a man and needs to like learn how to commit. So we sort of put the onus on the man. You're afraid of commitment. You need to fix that. It's a really funny thing is if you look at like women that I've worked with, they sort of fall into this pattern where they date men who are afraid of commitment. And that's why they're looking for commitment because they haven't found it yet, right? And so the really funny thing is sometimes women will select for a man who is afraid of commitment because deep down, they are afraid of commitment.
So is it that men are actually afraid of commitment? Or is it because men simply refuse to commit? Before anyone calls me out, yes, there is a difference. A huge difference. How many young women are there out chasing Tad, Chad, and Tyrone? Hell, how many older women are still out there trying to do the same thing and failing badly at it? Do women really think that these men are going to commit to them? These men have no incentive to commit to any woman. Between their looks, their money, and their status, they can pull in a different woman every night of the week and twice on Saturdays. Look at Leonardo DiCaprio. The man is in his 50s and he's still pulling in 22, 23-year-old bombshells, supermodels. Everyone knows at this point that he will not commit. There's even memes about it. Everyone knows once she reaches 25, he will toss her away and find someone younger. Yet, the women, they're still lining up. So what is his incentive to change his behavior and commit to one of them? There is none. From his perspective, it's not even a question. These women, they still think that they can somehow lock him down. Even if she knows that he has a line of X's a mile long, she'll still go for it. She has this delusion, something in her head, that she is somehow the one who can magically fix him. She's the one that can make him an honest, committed man. Right. While I don't support this lifestyle, in most cases, these men are crystal clear right at the front that all they want is something casual. They don't hide it. I can at least respect them for that. But when she fails, like so many others, then she, of course, blames the man. She rarely looks at herself as being the cause. The worst part is that these women do it over and over and over again. It's not like it's just once or twice. We all make mistakes. But no, she keeps doing it again and again. Yet, her fellow women and much of society coddle her and tell her it's okay, versus holding her accountable for her bad behavior so she can fix it and actually get into a successful relationship.
So true.
So I'm going to find someone who I know is afraid of commitment, and therefore I can blame them for never committing. And this is how I know this, because sometimes the dude will come into my office and he will work on his fear of commitment and he will conquer it. And the moment that he conquers his fear on commitment, the woman will retreat. They'll get terrified. They'll start to find all kinds of problems. And it's not just like men, and it's not just women are guilty of this. So there are all kinds of patterns that people will engage in that they have no insight into. First of all, understand your emotions, then you will understand your behaviors. Oh, like, why do I keep on selecting people who are afraid of commitment? Because I'm afraid of commitment. And if I can find somebody else who's afraid of commitment, I can blame them from it. And I never have to deal with my laddering up my fear of commitment. So there's a lot of stuff that comes with emotion. So awareness of emotions, awareness of your patterns, the ability to regulate them. And I'd say that kind of ties it up.
Finally, in the final minute of this clip, Dr. K acknowledges that women can sometimes be part of the problem when it comes into dating and relationships. I know, that is such shocking information. I'm honestly surprised he did it. Even so, he doesn't come out and directly say so. Rather, he implies it by saying that women with commitment issues will intentionally pick men who also have commitment issues. But even in that admission, he still has to implicate men. Of course, a woman can't be completely at fault. She can only be at fault if the man is also somehow at fault. Of course, men aren't perfect, especially when it comes to dating and relationships. That is all not the fault of women. Some of it falls completely on the men. However, when you try to say that women aren't perfect either when it comes to dating and relationships, what happens? Women everywhere start howling, "Oh my God," as if it's some sort of war crime for saying that. It's just ridiculous. Is it any surprise why men are checking out? One thing Dr. K is right about is that men must understand their emotions. By understanding them, they can control them. But it's certainly not in the way that Dr. K would advise, and it's certainly not in the way that modern feminists would advise. Men are inundated every single moment of every day with propaganda that they need to be vulnerable and they need to show their emotions to women, need to cry in front of their woman. Sure. Do you know what happens the moment that you show those sort of things to a woman? By their own admission, most women have no interest whatsoever in emotionally supporting their men. In many cases, they find it a complete romantic turnoff. It dries them up. We also have women who take that vulnerability and use it as a weapon, like a cudgel to bludgeon them. I've had that experience as well as so many other men. Any woman that tells you that she wants you to be more emotionally vulnerable is just lying to herself. However, you as a man will be the one paying the price. Well, we've reached the end of this video series. I didn't expect it to take so long, but turns out I had a lot to say. A lot more than I intended to. With so much commentary over these multiple videos, it's challenging to summarize it down. That being said, there are really two major points to take away from this. 2 points that all men should remember and take to heart. First, never ever blindly trust the advice any celebrity, influencer, or men's advocate would give you. That includes me as well. Many have no clue what they're talking about. They'll tell you all sorts of things, but when questioned, they can't defend it. Or worse, they avoid being challenged entirely. At no point in this series did Dr. K get seriously challenged about his views on dating and relationships. This is a huge red flag. You have others who are just looking to farm money, status, or attention off of men's backs. These are the ones who sell courses, they sell subscriptions, or otherwise promote their brands while providing almost nothing else of value. Outside of mentioning that men should understand their emotions, Dr. K really failed to provide anything else of significant value. The worst, of course, are those who are both grifters and clueless. By his own admission, Dr. K says he doesn't really know how to solve dating and relationship issues that men have at a societal level. Likewise, he admits that his advice, as well as most mainstream advice, won't work for these same men. With that in mind, men are suddenly supposed to believe that his giving love and receiving love advice is the core, is the absolute solution to all of their dating woes? Come on. To quote Judge Judy, "Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining." I've seen Dr. K actually give practical advice. I know, surprising considering what you see here. So I know he's actually capable of it. All this mumbo jumbo sounds too much like the woke crap that gets tossed around in the mainstream media. Maybe Dr. K is doing this because he has to appease his female audience at some level. Who knows? And that leads directly to my second point, which is a response to one of my detractors that commented on my last video. They say that Dr. K's message is effectively adapt or die. Certainly, there is some truth to it. However, there is a stark difference between how men and women are adapting in today's world. Women are being taught to adapt, to change, away from men. Anything that would make them more desirable for a man, well, that needs to just go completely away. Men, contrarily, are being taught that they need to adapt towards women. Anything that a woman wants, men need to adjust towards it. That is a problem. That is a huge problem. For a while, a lot of men tried that path, and they only found it resulted in endless frustration. So, men are adapting again, but in a very different way. Instead, men are adapting to their own wants and their own desires. They aren't chasing women as much. They aren't giving women what they want blindly just because a woman asks for it. In many cases, they're avoiding women entirely. For many men, they are finding happiness in their own endeavors, contentment and companionship with other men, and peace at home. But people like Dr. K call it a crisis. Ooh. They call it a crisis because of how it affects women, not because of how it affects men. Don't fall for this slop. Sure, most men, myself included, would like to have a good woman by their side. They'd also like to raise their own biological children. If the right woman comes along, many men will give her an opportunity, again, myself included. But for all the rest, the price is not worth it. No amount of crying, whining, begging, or shaming is going to change that. Take care of yourselves, men, and I will see you all in the next video.